Welcome to Talking New York Real Estate with Vince Rocco. Our show is all about the exciting world of real estate and in particular, how it relates to the luxury New York marketplace. But if you are not planning a real estate transaction in New York, we still have plenty of information you can use no matter where you are. Now, here's our show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I'm Vince Rocco in New York, where the state of our industry needs to be transparent. So let's get right to what everyone is talking about. Transparency in New York City real estate isn't a nice to have anymore. It's the foundation the market is being rebuilt on. For years, deals operated in gray areas, unclear buyer representation, opaque commission structures, and inconsistent disclosure practices. That environment created friction, mistrust, and at times, misaligned incentives. Now the shift is unmistakable. Buyers are asking sharper questions. Sellers expect clearer answers. Agents are being pushed to articulate their value with precision, not assumption. And with regulatory pressure and industry changes reshaping how business is done, the margin for ambiguity is gone. In this version of the market, transparency isn't just about compliance, it's about competitiveness. And the professionals who win are the ones who communicate clearly, price honestly, disclose fully, and operate at a level of openness that builds confidence on both sides of the deal. And here on set with me today are Sarah Silva from Brown Harris Stevens, and she joins me now to discuss. But first, let me welcome my listeners and viewers from across the United States and all around the globe. This is Talking New York Real Estate, so let's go behind the headlines and inside the state of our industry.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at stephen@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back, and we're sitting here talking to Sarah Silva. She works here at Brown Harris Stevens alongside myself and many, many others. You know, we're talking about transparency today, and all of last year and into the year before, 2024, 2025, we've had a lot of change in our industry. Buyer, broker representation, the Fair Act on the rental side. So many different things have happened in our industry. And one of the things agents, I believe, get caught up with or stumped with is the lack of transparency. It's kind of like they want to cover stuff up or not want to talk about it. No one's really going to know if I don't mention something. But I think, as I read in the intro, we have to understand that being as transparent as possible is only going to make us more successful and a lot more competitive. So Sarah, welcome. I'm happy to have you here today.
Thank you.
In your opinion, though, what actually has forced transparency or a new, fresher look on transparency in New York? Is it regulation, lawsuits, consumer demand, all of the above? Your opinion, what has really kind of pushed this more lately?
I think that's a terrific question. And what I will say is, as in any business, there's always going to be a few bad apples, right? And
I call them banana heads. They've all heard me say banana heads
the good
before.
and bad bananas. And what I will say is typically enough times of those bad bananas interacting with folks, it's going to eventually lead to a few lawsuits along the way. And that's what inevitably prompts and spurs new laws to come into place. So I do feel as though, for example, the Fair Act, that went into effect June of last year. And the reason why that went into effect was because in the rental business, there were buyers and sellers and renters, just landlords, the whole shebang, like finding out these exorbitant broker commission fees. They were completely taking advantage of the environment. And unfortunately, that prompted more regulations of let's disclose all of those fees up front, right? Buyer representation agreement that came into play because unfortunately, there were some fees in the background that were happening after the fact that wasn't clear up front. So I do feel as though because there wasn't as much transparency up front for everyone, that led to these laws having to come into effect.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and well said. But I sometimes think, and we can get into a little bit more later, but I sometimes think, though, when it comes to pricing or commissions or numbers or whatever, I think I have always been transparent with that. I mean, it's always been sort of a staple or a standard.
Yeah.
So when people started complaining,
it should just be baseline for a good agent.
correct. And so people started, complaining, well, you guys aren't being transparent enough. I don't know, what the commission is or should be or whatever. I would sit back and think, why not?
Right. 100%.
Because we've been very open and out there with these numbers, from 24 years for me in the business. But do you think the market now truly is more transparent, or do you think we still have a way to go, or we're just better presenting information? Because that's another question where people say, well, are we or aren't we? I mean, I know we need to be better at being transparent, but where are we currently? Are we getting better yet or not?
I would say that we've made strides into getting better when it comes to becoming transparent and forcing the bad bananas to be a little bit more transparent in their business practices. I do feel like we still have a way to go in terms of transparency for everyone to be transparent. Like you said, good brokers, being transparent is just a baseline way that they work. Yeah. Unfortunately, not every agent works that way, and laws have to come into play. Rules and regulations have to come into play to force them to be so. So I do think in terms of transparency where, we can pull out our phones right now, go look for a listing for the most part. That's amazing, right? When it comes to the FAIR Act and the buyer representation agreement that just came out, yes, those are strides towards a transparent environment. However, I do feel as though the things that we still have to work towards is if a buyer is going to go look for a listing, I feel as though they should be able to see all listings that's available to them. Now, I do understand that there may be unique situations where a private sale does make sense for someone, for maybe there's something with their business that they don't want out there. They're going through a divorce or something along those lines where a private sale may make sense for them, but that's not the norm, right? No. So an average home should have the most amount of eyeballs on it, and that should be something that should be at the fingertips of everyone who's looking for a listing. In my humble opinion, days on market, simple things like that, buyer broker commissions, being clearly presented of what's being offered on the listing, those are simple things that I still feel like we need to get past on the transparency.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, the private listing debate that's going on these days within our industry. And there's always 2, maybe 5 sides to the story.
Totally.
But when we're talking about transparency, and when I think about transparency, I have to believe that's breaking all the transparency rules you can have.
Yeah.
First of all, I really don't understand why a seller would want to have a private listing.
Right?
Who sees it? Who sees it?
If you present the facts so clearly, the pros and cons of having a private exclusive versus putting your home publicly, who in their right mind is going to say, yeah, you know what? I just want my home to be marketed to 5 folks.
Yeah, well, you know what? In New York City, everybody needs to have access to that listing and either want to see it or not. I was never an off-market kind of person or a private listing kind of person. I don't see the merit in it. I don't see any sense in it whatsoever. Yeah. But that's a conversation for another day.
Totally.
So again, talking about the buyer representation agreements and how things have changed since January of 2025, how are you clearly explaining now your compensation to buyers today?
So
as the rules have changed, we have to have conversations.
You have to have those conversations up front now, right? So similarly to how you meet with a seller and you have a preliminary conversation of, these are my duties to you, you outline everything. This is what I'm going to be doing to you. These are your protections. This is how much my services are going to cost you in order to list your home for sale. We have to have similar conversations up front with buyers before we work with them. So when I'm about to work with a buyer, I do explain to them, hey, here is an agreement that I do have to present to you. It outlines my services to you, my fiduciary duty to you, the protections that you get, and also the fee for my services. I do also make sure that I include that most sellers are still covering a buyer broker fee. I feel as though that's an important element that's still being kind of left out of the conversation. So buyers get spooked. And based on everything that's happened as I continue to work with buyers, I haven't come across a listing yet where my fee hasn't been covered. However, I always like to get the uncomfortable conversation out of the way up front when I'm working with my clients.
I was going to ask you that because, there's also and we talked about this on the show a while ago, there's also that feeling like, well, agents are only going to, show apartments where they are getting paid by the seller, right?
Yeah.
So therefore, then they don't have to have that conversation that you just talked about up front with the buyer in case something we find, you need to pay me. So there's a little bit of that as well.
I agree.
And so it's kind of a tricky situation. Now, question to you is now, when you approach any new buyer, do you always have this conversation up front?
I do.
Or do you kind of wait and say, well, there's a listing I really want to show you, but the seller's only paying the listing agent, so you got to pay me?
I come from a place of just operating very transparently.
Correct.
So this is something that buyers should be aware of up front. It could affect you, it could not affect you.
Absolutely.
But nevertheless, let's discuss everything that's on the table that could affect you as we go through this journey together.
Absolutely. And are there still things not being said out loud when it comes to the fees? Like I said before, maybe some agents are holding back on having that conversation until they really need to.
Yeah.
And is that productive?
No, I think you should be having these conversations up front. And I remember in the brokerage community when these changes were coming out, almost, you could probably attest to this, almost every agent was just kind of freaking out of, this is one other thing I have to sell a client on. But there were another pool of agents who were like, game on, right? Because now I get to really differentiate and show that I can articulate my value as I'm presenting this agreement, right? So it was just something that didn't affect brokers who already know their value and what they're bringing to the table.
It's always about what value we bring to the table. Transparency, trust, confidentiality, between you and your client.
Yeah.
But let me ask you something. So when you present this conversation about the broker agreement, whatever, to buyers, do you find that some of them are skeptical, or some of them are saying, hey, wait a minute, I don't have that kind of money to pay you, or I'm not going to pay you?
Yeah.
What kind of feedback are you getting after you have these legitimate and proper conversations?
That's a great question. So I've had both responses, right?
Because I haven't had to have that conversation yet.
Oh, really?
I mean, well, go ahead.
Good for
you
you.
Finish and then I've had the conversation about this may happen.
Yeah.
But not, okay, we found a listing that you have to now pay.
Yeah.
I haven't had that conversation because I haven't found one like that yet.
So I've had both things happen to me, both outcomes. And I've had a situation where I met with the client. We started working together. We had a buyer's broker representation agreement signed up front. They knew that this could happen. And I think that's the key, right? You're having these conversations from the very beginning, and clients are a little bit more receptive when it happens because you've kind of laid out that this is a possibility that could come up later down the line. My business is 50% Manhattan as well as Brooklyn, and it is a little bit more predominant in the Brooklyn market that fees are a little lower of what's being offered. So I did come across a situation where the listing was just 2% and that did not cover my full fee. So then I went to my client and I expressed to them, hey, they're not covering my full fee. I will nevertheless still try to get this negotiated because commissions are negotiable. It turns out that seller was just not having it. So then I brought up, okay, this is where we can make a deal happen, but this is the delta, so to speak, of what you're going to have to cover for my services. Are you okay with that? Because I was so upfront about it in the beginning, it wasn't them being bamboozled later down the journey. They were just like, yeah, I want you to get your money. Let's go for it.
Who's going to refuse you anyway?
You're so sweet.
I can so see that. But it's true though. I mean, if you're upfront and you're again, the word transparent, and if you're upfront and transparent and explain.
Yeah, set the expectations up front.
100%. Let's talk about the seller though. So what does transparent pricing look like without really killing the negotiation. So in other words, we all know we go and talk to sellers, and I just signed up 3 of them, and they all want what they want. Thank you. They all want what they want. But we all know sometimes that that's not achievable or attainable.
Yeah.
So when we're upfront and transparent about that, and I have always been in the 24 years, I go fully armed with market data and information.
Yep.
We call it comps, whatever.
Yep.
Here's what the market is saying. Here's what you're going to get for your apartment. Probably.
Yep.
There's always the exception to the rule.
The asterisk.
Correct. So how is it, being so now upfront and honest and transparent, is it really kind of killing negotiations with these sellers, or is it kind of like?
I don't think so at all. The conversations that I've had with my sellers is we all run the comparable analysis. We look at what's both available, what's sold in a neighborhood, and we present that factual information to the client. And I always let my clients present the information, and I say, look, this is what's available. This is what's recently sold within the last few months in the neighborhood. This is what I feel as though is a fair market price for your home. And then I will also always ask them the question, what's the number that you're thinking of listing? Because I always kind of like to poke around in their heads and see what they're thinking. And then I explain to them, you just kind of like break it down, right? Where, okay, this is what the data is showing is a fair market price. This is what, you feel your home is worth. And if we go with the aspirational pricing route that you feel is worth for your home, this is what could happen. You could be on the market way past 2 weeks, and that is then a lower amount of eyeballs that are looking at your apartment, lower amount of foot traffic that's coming, and that becomes the kiss of death for your listing.
100%.
And we're then going to be chasing your home down the market versus the other path where we do list your home right at the fair market price, or maybe a little bit we meet in the middle of what's yours and my pricing so that we're not so far apart. You're happy, I'm happy. We test it out for a few weeks and see how that goes. Again, I'm not talking like we're hundreds of thousands apart. I'm talking like a couple of thousands apart here.
Absolutely.
And we test it out, and there's 2 things that can happen. We let the market speak to us. Buyers come through, they place an offer, or I've even had situations where we could end up walking away with way more than we listed it for. So which outcome do you prefer?
Correct.
And then they inevitably say, you know what, that totally made sense. Let's go with what you recommended.
I just, before we go to break, I was just out on Sunday, and we were talking about it before the show, with a buyer, pretty high-end buyer, 3-bedroom, and I noticed the price was a little low. And so I said something to the agent, and the agent said, right in front of my customer and myself, we intentionally priced it under what we know we're going to get to try and get more. Mm-hmm. And I thought to myself, well, that wasn't pretty smart of her to say that.
Not at all.
I wouldn't have said that in front of the buyer.
Right.
But she put it out there, and I'm like, okay, so she convinced their seller to underprice it by a little bit, not a lot, just to kind of get a lot more activity, excuse me, and a lot more attendance. And let's see where she goes with that. We loved it.
The strategy wasn't bad, right?
No.
But like to your point, don't say it out loud.
Correct. Okay. And with that, we've got to take a break. In our next block, we're going to talk about the value of agents in our business. This is Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
The Everset provides full-service staging and furniture rental solutions in the New York area. For more information, please visit us at staging.theeverset.com or email us at staging@theeverset.com to request a free proposal.
Okay, everybody, we are back. So, Sarah, are agents overcorrecting to avoid price cuts? Because that's a big thing. Nobody wants to really, cut pricing as you go along on the market, because then people sit back and say, buyers looking at
What's wrong with it?
Something is wrong with it.
Exactly.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Other than, it's probably overpriced, but they start thinking that there are other things wrong. How are agents dealing with that?
So I would say I do find that there is, during the pandemic, there was like some obvious underpricing going on. I think that was more prominent in the market environment. You know, I recall in Brooklyn Heights, there was this listing that I brought my client to. It ended up selling in the end for $1 million over the asking price. But as agents, we knew that was going to happen because it was so grossly underpriced.
Yeah.
So that was the strategy then. However, I do feel like we've leveled out a bit now where most listings are priced just at about the fair market price with a little bit of negotiation room on it. And then we obviously still deal with those listings where brokers will list at aspirational prices just to get the listing. So I do feel like we have those two things going on right now.
Yeah, and that's really important. And as we said, you know, not every agent is going to behave or act
The bad bananas.
as the others. So we got to be careful with that. Do you think transparency elevates good agents, or does it commoditize everyone?
I really believe that transparency is just a baseline for every great agent out there. I don't think transparency alone makes a great agent, though. I think what differentiates agents is the level of service that they bring to a client. So I don't think becoming transparent is going to commoditize you as an agent. In fact, I think it should be just part of your business practice. And the level of service is what's really going to differentiate you.
You know, this is a very visual business, as we know.
Totally.
Okay. And now with buyers or anybody having such access to so many apps and databases to do their own searches and whatever, how do we as agents, how do you as an agent, successful agent, by the way,
Thanks.
prove your value when everything is like so visible and so out there, and we have to come back or step in and say, hey, remember me, I'm your agent, I'm your credible source, I'm your this, I'm your that. How do you do that when everything is really so visible that
That's a great
some
question.
people say, I don't really need you as an agent, I can do it on my own.
I love it when they say that to me.
Oh, I have great answers when they say that to me. But you get the point, right? Initially, they think, I don't need an agent, I can search on my own, I can make my own appointment, and I can go do what I want to do. But because everything is all out there.
Yeah, you could literally.
But what they miss is what?
Search.
They miss us
100%.
and the trust and the credibility that we bring to the table.
Definitely. You're absolutely right. You can pull out your phone right now and search anything that you want to, right? And, you know, I find as though, although the information is out there, is it tailored to your specific needs of what you need? Because real estate is not a one-size-fits-all business.
Not at all.
Right?
Not even a little bit.
100%. If a pipe in my house bursts, can I go Google how to fix that pipe? Absolutely. Am I going to do it? Absolutely not. I'm going to call a professional because I'm not going to know the different types of pipes that like I need to fix, the types of threading, the model, this, that, yada, yada. I find as though, yes, we are in an era where information is at your fingertips, but that doesn't mean that you should be DIYing millions of dollars when it's on the line. You should trust a professional who knows this in and out to guide you through the process.
How difficult is it for you as an agent to convince buyers, let's talk about the buyer, that you bring something to the table more than just your person, right? You bring a lot of education, information, credibility.
Yeah.
You know the industry, you know the apartments. A lot of us have been in the business for a while. We know the lines in the building and blah, blah, whatever. How do you convince a buyer that it really is worth working with me or another successful agent, credible agent? Because if you're doing it on your own, it's really not going to be good.
Right.
They don't have access to the stuff we have, really. And they don't really know the buildings like we know them, et cetera.
And they don't have the relationships that we do for doing this business a number of years. How many times have you worked in a transaction where you knew the broker and that helped to create an environment to get that deal over the finish line? There's so many things. We have an A-team of attorneys, lenders that we recommend to our clients to create a seamless experience for everyone involved, right? So we present this information, at least I do, when I meet with a client, a buyer. I express to them, this is what I provide. I create a seamless experience for you that you're not racking your brain trying to figure this out. You just focus on finding the right home, and I will handle all the rest for you. Now, at the same token, there are buyers out there that you could preach from yesterday to next week about your value. They've already made up their mind if they're going to work with a broker or not, right?
They they already have.
Exactly.
But, when you work with a buyer, and you're starting with a buyer.
You put the information out there.
You do. I do the same thing as you do because I feel it's necessary. But then, some of them will just continually search on their own and send you listings. I want to see this. I want to see that.
Yep.
And then oftentimes we have to have the conversation with the buyer like, hey, great. Thank you. It looks like a nice listing, but I'm here to tell you as the credible source that we can't just look at pictures, okay? Because this is really not an apartment for you. Yet you might think so by just looking at the listing.
Totally.
Right? So I think the value that we bring to the table is a lot more than a lot of buyers understand. And when I talk to buyers about that, it doesn't really cut down the amount of links that they send me, of course, from Street Easy. But they get it when I say, okay, this one is, because I will respond right away.
Yeah.
I'll look it up if I don't already know it.
Yep.
I'll look it up and I say, yeah, this looks nice, but I've been there and it's just
let
not
me tell you a little bit about
you.
the building. I know you're not going to like this, right?
Correct.
Because you listened.
They don't have a clue.
100%.
They look at pictures. Oh, the picture looks great.
Yeah.
That floor plan matches everything that I really need. Oh my God, that floor plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or the pictures where, like, as a broker, okay, that was like over filtered, and I could already see the bathroom, the kitchen's going to need a renovation. I've had situations where I know right off the bat that's a kitchen that's going to need a renovation, and the client doesn't know that.
The client doesn't know that because they sometimes don't want to know that. They're quickly searching, whatever, and they flip it to you, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
And then I cut it down and say, okay, we can see this one.
Totally.
Or we're
because
not going
they
to see
have
this
to
one.
go on that journey too.
Of course they do. It's interesting because here in New York City, we're such a big city. There's, not as many listings these days as we used to have, but there's still a lot of apartments on the market.
Yeah.
So buyers can get overwhelmed when they're doing their own search.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of them, like we were talking about it offline earlier, a lot of it is a fascination with New York City real estate.
Absolutely.
Absolute fascination.
Yep.
And so they want to make sure that they're not missing out on anything.
Feeling of FOMO. Yeah, it's real.
Correct. FOMO is real in this industry. And so, they're working with the credible source and they really like us and they trust us. But, they still have that kind of feeling like, well, maybe he missed something or maybe he doesn't know X or Y.
Right,
Okay.
right.
So I also find, and we were talking about this, I think, last week or the week before on the show, that in today's day, marketplace rather, we have to learn to be better communicators.
Yep.
And learn how to better negotiate, because everything we do by way of conversation with a buyer or a seller, every conversation is on some level a negotiation.
Absolutely.
And there are agents who I feel just don't have that in their mind when they're talking to somebody.
Yeah.
Right? And so they're not saying the right thing, doing the right thing, making them understand, them being the buyer or the seller, what really needs to be, communicated.
100%. Your role at the end of the day as a real estate agent, that client is coming to you to advise them, guide them, not just take what's being put on your plate and not help turn that into information that you can then help guide them through the process.
Correct.
I completely understand, there are some buyers who need to build up their bank of knowledge of real estate values and will need to go through that research process. And then there's also buyers on the other end of the spectrum where they know exactly what it is that they want. And they go for it. And we can have conversations if it's this neighborhood, these are my non-negotiables, and let's go get it done.
100%.
Yeah.
Speaking along the lines of, buyers wanting to look at their own stuff or whatever, do you think technology has really democratized information or just overwhelmed the consumer? Because from when I first started in the industry 24 years ago, we had half the amount of technology, and I'm not even going to address AI.
Yeah.
But we have half the amount. We had half the amount of technology in those days. Now I think we have way too much for that consumer to be looking at, because again, as we talked about before, they don't have the knowledge. We do.
Yep.
We're the industry insider. They're not. They can look at a glossy picture or video or a floor plan and think, this is made for me.
I totally agree.
Your comments on technology, though, today.
Yeah, I agree with you. I feel as though we have way too much technology right now, and it does overwhelm the customer for sure. You go on TikTok, you go on Instagram, and there's a video out there about how to flip your first house and how to be an investor. And it's just like, no, let's start over here. Yeah. Let's have a conversation with actual information here. Even going online, looking for apartments isn't the only thing that there is when it comes to buying a home in New York City. There's so many other delicate intricacies. I've had clients who've bought all over the country. Mm-hmm. They come to New York City to buy their first home, and we're going through the journey, and they're like, Sarah, what the heck is this? What do you mean I can't just say the money is in the bank, let's go, this is mine? Why do they need to know my social security number? Like all of these things. And I find as though, yes, a lot of that information that's being pumped out, whether factual or not, does overwhelm the consumer. And they really should go to a professional who knows this inside and out to guide them through step 1, step 2, step 3, so that they're not looking at all the steps and immediately get overwhelmed.
You nailed it when you said, people coming from other areas. Well, it's so easy to buy. In every class I teach in continuing ed in real estate, I bring up the same topic. And that basically is, look, we here in New York City transact real estate far different than any place else in this country or in this world.
Yeah.
And so wherever else you're buying, it's a matter of being pre-approved, signing a contract, and closing and moving in.
Yep.
Not in New York City.
Nope.
You've got boards, you've got co-op boards,
a professional reference letter, a personal one.
Unbelievable. So the complication in what we do, kind of puts off, a lot of buyers when they're buying for the first time here.
For sure.
Or even if they're buying for a second or third time. They just don't want to go through the ordeal that it takes to get a deal done.
And that's when we talk about, let's go for a new development.
100%. Now, when we talk,
Right.
When we're talking about AI, now from a technology perspective, I actually, and I didn't want to bring this up, but I'm still a little shocked about it. A new buyer of mine that I'm working with, actually we've worked in the past before, and now he's buying something else. He texted me yesterday and said something about, well, Vince, don't you just love ChatGPT? Don't you just love AI and blah, blah, blah? And I'm reading this and thinking, where's it going with this? And he says, I was doing a search on all the areas in New York that I want to find a great apartment for you to show me when I get there, whatever. He's coming up from Florida. And I'm thinking, you're searching New York City real estate on ChatGPT.
When he knows you.
But he's just this kind of guy. He's not the type that's going to cheat
There
on
are
me.
Those guys,
Just like the ones who are on Street Easy.
Yeah.
And so I finished reading this text. I laughed out loud. I went into ChatGPT and I put in a little search criteria.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, I don't necessarily trust that, whatever came up. So I'm going to have to now go to my sources and find out if this apartment is really listed, not listed, whatever. And it was also very complicated. So I'm thinking, he's a very smart guy, but I'm thinking, why would you want to do that? You've already combed through Street Easy, and now you're going through ChatGPT. Look, I'm an AI person. I'm a tech person. I've been in this business for a long time. I never even thought about searching for real estate listings.
Oh my God.
In ChatGPT. I mean, I can't even imagine it. And I didn't really want to bring it up because I don't want to give any food for thought for people out there because I don't know that I trust those listings, quite frankly.
Totally.
I mean, I really don't.
Agree.
What tools are actually improving, in your opinion, transparency versus just continuing to create
just noise, right? Just noise out there.
A lot of noise.
I find as though the most underutilized and underappreciated tool that's out there is a broker newsletter. I find as though these are relevant information put into such a concise manner that's educating you on what's currently going on that you should be aware of by a real professional. The media is always like a couple of weeks behind what's actually happening. I've had situations where I meet with a buyer and they bring up something like when the FAIR Act was happening, for example. I had a landlord who was going to buy an apartment for investment purposes, and he was curious, obviously, to know what's going to be these rental changes. And it was so funny when we're having a conversation about what that means, and I'm literally telling him, hey, that already passed. Here's what you need to know. The media was just delivering it to the crowd of this is what's changing, but this has been happening. So I find as though broker newsletters are very important for you to be tuned into to find out what's going on at that moment, because we're so on the ground and operating in real time with everything.
Access to data is important.
And we also take that information and turn it into things that are important and not important, or what is true and what's not true. And in a times like now, we need to know what's true or not.
Exactly. And what's good or not.
Yeah.
You know, aside from the content that I put out with this program, I also on social media try to put out same kind of content or even more, because again, I've always been a data person, thinking the more I know, the more successful I'm going to be or could be. And so I'd like to put that out there for just the consumer in general. And then anybody who I'm working with or who I've already worked with that may be following me, whatever. So they're getting good access to data. You mentioned the FAIR Act before, and I wanted to ask you this before and I forgot. But with the new rental rules, okay? Now, we all know that what has come down is the landlord or the condo owner, whatever, is now the only person paying a commission, and that is the listing agent side.
Well, you pay for your own representation.
Correct. Exactly. So now if we get a referral and a renter wants to use us to go out and see rentals, we're technically not getting paid. So do you have that same conversation with the renter that if you want me to work with you, you have to pay me just like you did with the buyer representation?
Absolutely. It's
and how is that landing with the renter?
Oh, well, tenant? For the most part, they're like, do I really? Just to preface, my business is a very small portion of rentals.
Me too. I hardly do anything.
But when I do decide to be connected with someone who needs a rental, I lay it out to them, all their possible options. Hey, you could either do it yourself and save yourself the fee. Typically, if it's under $10,000, I tell the clients to save the fee. That's my advice.
Right.
And I give them the sources of where to go so they can get it done.
Right.
When it starts to lean over into the luxury element, where a lot of those rentals are, you got to know that person who may have something or have the relationships to get you that inventory. There's a lot more delicate details involved. So that's when I let them know, hey, it's more advantageous for you to work with a broker at this price point. There's a lot more hair on the deal, so to speak.
Indeed, there is.
And I can help navigate you through that. However, with the recent changes as of June of 2025, here's what you need to know. Everyone has to pay for their own representation. I've also had these conversations with even landlords who are thinking of renting their apartments. Hey, I just want you to know now you have to pay my fee. We can't pass it off to the renter. So I do have those conversations up front, just like I do with my buyers when it comes to the buyer-broker agreement, because again, it just comes all back to that transparency baseline, setting proper expectations up front.
Getting back to what you said before about, sending out, broker information to clients and stuff. So should agents actually curate this stuff and interpret it rather than just take a company marketing report and send it out? I do. I do, because I think, your point before, it makes a hell of a lot of sense. Again, with that credibility, with the transparency. I will take a company report, but add my own something to it to make it more sensible or more coming from me, whatever. So I think curating it makes a lot of sense, right?
100%. Don't just
presenting something.
Copy and paste.
Yeah, no.
Actually, I've seen so many newsletters where, it's just copy and paste of X amount of contracts happened last month in Brooklyn and Manhattan market. Okay, but let's go a step further, right? Let's say, what does that mean for the buyer? What does that mean for the sellers?
Correct.
What kind of market it is? Let's translate this and communicate this a little bit better to the client. And in essence, you're going to provide so much value and create trust.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if I'm putting my name on something, even if it means sending an email to one of my clients, I want them to feel like it's coming from me.
Totally.
And not just, as you say, copy and pasting or taking a company report and, whatever. And if I do take a company report, because, here at BHS, we have great reports.
There's good info,
Very good info. But I will always add something. in my intro, saying, hey, this is what it is. Let me interpret it for you and blah, blah.
Right.
Because sometimes people read information
right,
and they don't really know where to go with that
totally,
or how to translate that.
Totally.
All right, we've got to take another quick break. We're going to come right back to talk about some truth and risks in being transparent, which is very important. This is Talking New York Real Estate on the More Network. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back.
This podcast is supported by the More Network, powered by Brown Harris Stevens. Real estate touches every aspect of our lives, from design and architecture to investing and the economy. Now there's a way to get all your real estate information in one place, the More Network. With more than 20 podcast and webcast series, the Mastery of Real Estate Network is powered by Brown Harris Stevens, one of the country's most distinguished brokerages. Discover advice from notable entrepreneurs, compelling topics, and access to top global real estate experts. Subscribe to their YouTube and Apple podcast channels by visiting getmorenetwork.com.
Okay, and we are back. So, when we're talking about trust, okay, but there's obviously also a potential for risk. Does transparency build confidence, or does it create kind of hesitation? Because sometimes people say to me, well, if I'm really too open and really too honest, the client might get a little, whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, no, they're going to appreciate you more because you're giving them the bottom line.
Absolutely.
I believe in that bottom line all the time.
Absolutely. I find as though transparency is just good business practice. Mm-hmm. And with any of my clients, I give them the hard truths. Sometimes it's pretty, sometimes it's not. I've had conversations with clients who are longtime clients of mine where our relationship started from a place of they were buying their first home, and I'm standing across from them and they're saying their lease is expiring within the next month. And I literally say, do me a favor, go renew your lease. Do not rush buying your first place. And that goes against any incentives of my own as a broker. I operate from a place of doing the right thing for the client. And that's just going to pay off in spades and create such an environment of trust and rapport with that client that inevitably leads to just so many happy referrals and just happy clients. And it makes you happy as a broker.
Exactly. You can't have success in this industry, and I've said this from day one, without having that trust. You have to have that trust. Look, there are too many of us in this industry. There are way too many people running around on the buy side and the sell side, all over the place. Half of them are misguided and misdirected. But I have found through the years that if they really trust you, what you're saying, how you've got their back, the things that you're showing them or whatever, they're going to stick with you. For the most part, I mean, there are going to be the strays here and there, but for sure. I have always seen in my experience that if I'm able to build, and that's one of the first things I do when I meet a buyer or a seller for the first time, you've got to establish that level of trust.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like a game with me. I kind of feel like I was working with a brand new buyer over the weekend, as I told you about. And I said, I've got to make sure that she trusts me and make sure that, she likes me and wants to continue working with me. By the time we said goodbye, after a very long day of viewing 8 apartments, believe it or not, I walked away thinking, I know, right? I was exhausted. I walked away thinking, I think she likes me. I think she trusts me. And I think we're going to have a good working relationship. She's a beautiful, lovely woman. Beautiful. I mean, in here. Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, okay, so this is going to work. Because I can't, if I feel that someone doesn't trust me,
it affects you.
It totally does.
It totally does.
I can't do that. Where's the line between strategy and kind of like withholding information? Because I know a lot of agents think they're strategizing with a buyer or a seller, but yet they're really kind of holding back on some very important information that they may have to discuss at some point. Yep. As you said earlier, I'm up front with everybody right up front.
Yep.
And I am the same way.
Yep.
So where is that line, though, in your opinion?
I would say the line is, look, you should never hold back. You should always find the right time to have the conversations with a client, and provide the information that they need to know to make informed decisions. But I do feel this is where your people skills comes into play as a broker, where you have to pay attention to the signals that that customer is throwing your way. You're not just checklisting through everything that you need to tell them and just letting it off your chest so you can move on to the next thing. Pay attention to how their body is reacting to you. Are they looking stressed? Are they looking overwhelmed? And if they are, take a breather and then say, hey, you know what? I know this was a lot today. Let's pick this up later on a phone call.
That is so well said. Because what I also say, I teach as well. So what you have to learn when dealing with people is how to read them.
Absolutely.
And understand where that threshold of, all right, I'm kind of fried right now and I need to kind of really, chill out. I can pick that out in someone.
Yeah.
But I know too many brokers, agents, whatever, just people in general, who have no clue how to read the person they're talking to, working with, what colleagues sometimes.
Yeah.
Why is that difficult, do you think, in people? Is it because they're just so self-centered that they don't really pay attention to anybody else but themselves, or they want to get their point across, or they need to be, pushing?
Yeah. That's a great question.
I mean, I try and figure that out with people sometimes, and I really can't.
If I had to guess, I would say it's a couple of different things. I would say maybe the first one is a lack of confidence. When you lack confidence, you feel as though you constantly have to fill the space with information in order to provide some sort of value and kind of like authenticize yourself. And
authenticity.
That's not, thank you very much. The other one that I would probably say is a lot of brokers operate from a checklist mindset, right? It's just one other thing they have to check off their list, but they forget that this needs to be fluid. This needs to be digestible. This needs to be a you give some and take some kind of thing.
Really?
Let's have a conversation. Let's not just ask a bunch of questions. It's kind of like when you're getting to know a client, right? You're drilling them with questions, but you're not taking the time to actually volunteer a little bit of information about yourself as well, and finding common ground and getting to know each other. It's just, you need to make it so much more digestible. You need to spend the time building your confidence as a broker so you don't come off from a place of, I need to constantly prove something.
100%. But I think, the word authenticity that you bring up in the conversation here is a lot, is very meaningful. And I think that agents sometimes fall down and can't really get that trust built up that we all need.
Totally.
Because they don't come across as being authentic.
Nope.
They're pushing, as I said before. Checklist oriented. I mean, I know so many people just in life, outside of real estate, but more importantly in real estate, that are very checklist oriented. I get it. We all work off of checklists.
For sure. I got a checklist right now.
As do I. And especially when it comes to writing the show and booking there's always going to be a checklist. But you got to take that with a grain of salt.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And understand that, as I also teach in school, we're humans.
Absolutely.
And what you give, you want back.
100%.
And what somebody gives you, you want to give back, because that's what's going to establish that relationship. And one of the other things we talk about on this show all the time is, the difference between relationship agent and transactional agent.
Ooh,
and
that's a great one.
It's a great one. I'm going to ask your opinion on that in a minute. But this is what I think stumps a lot of agents, because when you're transactionally focused or oriented, you're not thinking about the person. And I use the word person.
Yeah.
Right? Not client, but
the
person.
Human.
They're human. Talk to me a little bit about, I can immediately know and tell that you're a relationship. I know, me too.
Yeah.
and I try and bring this across in every class I teach on the real estate side, because we are missing something if we focus on that transaction, the urgency of a transaction, and forget that our relationship with a human is what's going to drive everything home.
Totally. This is not just a financial decision for a client. It's also an emotional one.
Big time.
And they're leaning on you to help guide them through it, both financially and emotionally. Again, I know we joke a lot that as a real estate agent, we're not just real estate agents, we're financial planners.
We're everybody.
We're therapists, the whole thing, right?
Absolutely. School teachers, you name it.
100%. So I do feel as though folks need to just take a beat, process the information, come from a place of, okay, I don't need this deal. Clients can see it when you're operating from that place of, I need to do this deal. You know, it's funny. I was just working.
It's unbelievable, but it's true.
I just met a client about 2 weeks ago, and I was asking questions, getting to know him. And I learned that he was working with a broker for a few months prior to meeting me. And I asked him, I said, hey, out of curiosity, what went wrong there? How come, you're looking for a change? And he said, I felt so much pressure to just buy something, although I felt as though I wasn't finding the right place. And here I am just like, hey, let's go look for exactly what it is that you want, no matter how long that takes, because it matters to me that you're happy in the end. I'm coming from a relationship standpoint. This deal doesn't matter to me. The deals that matter to me is you calling me when you're ready to buy the next place, you calling me when you know a friend or a coworker is looking to buy next place, and that's only going to happen when you've built a relationship with that person versus you need to buy this. The clock's ticking, right? And that's just going to reek of desperation. And buyers are going to see right through that and not trust you, right? And now he's the one that's calling me and he's like, hey, I've got this property swirling around, but he's the one calling me and expressing that he's thinking of placing an offer. I'm not the one breathing down his chest. When he calls me and he says he's interested, here's what you need to know. You let me know if you're ready to make that next step.
I probably have told this story here on the show before, so if I have, forgive me, but it's relevant. And when I'm teaching, I tell it all the time as well. Based on relationship versus transaction versus, being warm and friendly and blah, blah, whatever. I was teaching a class, and I don't remember the name of the class, and we were talking about this. And,
yeah.
So I'm looking at a student, in front of me, and she's getting visibly kind of uncomfortable in her chair.
Uh-huh.
And she finally raised her hand, and she said, so Vince, along the lines of what we're talking about here, she said, I just want to, ask you a question. I was working with somebody, a couple, for 8 or 9 months, and we saw many, many apartments, whatever. And then all of a sudden, they disappeared. They're not returning my phone calls. They're not returning my text messages, my emails, whatever. I said, oh, they ghosted you? She said, yeah, they just disappeared. And I don't really know why. Mm-hmm. And, sometimes I could be a little whatever. And I just looked right at her and I said, they didn't like you.
You weren't the favorite.
She was like... She was visibly like, and everybody else in the class was like, oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. I said it very nicely. I said, they didn't like you.
It's just that simple sometimes.
How could they not like me? Oh, I showed them all these apartments. I said, you know what? It's more than just showing them apartments.
Yeah.
And it's what you and I are talking about here. It's that connection from human
100%.
to human. That authenticity, the credibility, the trust. And I said to her, look, not for anything, and we can talk offline about this if you wish, but, I call it that T word. Mm-hmm. Did they trust you?
Right.
Well, I don't know. I think they did.
Did you establish trust?
I probably would guess and say they didn't.
Yeah. And at the same token, I operate from a place of I'm going to be myself. I'm going to be my same bubbly, transparent self. And that's going to mesh with some people and it's not going to mesh with some people. And that's totally okay, right? When you come from a place of such confidence, it doesn't matter to you if that person doesn't like you. You keep it moving on to the next.
I always say, I only know how to be me.
Totally.
I only know how to be me.
And if they don't like me, that's okay. We weren't going to be friends anyway.
Perfectly cool.
Yep.
I've said that for years.
Yep.
I only know how to be me.
Totally.
So I don't want to be, I don't need to be anybody else or put on that, that face or the air. I mean, I bump into agents sometimes. I just laugh to myself when I see that whole, demeanor and they think who they are. I'm like, whatever. Calm down.
Yeah.
So I only know how to be me. And I think me or you have a way of relating to our clients, whether they're sellers and buyers or renters or whatever, landlords, because they feel that there's something there that they can latch onto. And I tell people all the time in this industry, if you want to be successful, you've got to give a part of yourself.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got to make sure that they know that you're giving a part of them of yourself because you want that back.
That give and take?
That's give and take.
Yeah.
That's effective communication. As I said a minute ago, learning how to better negotiate, because it just seems that lately, every time I open my mouth to speak in this industry to a client or whatever, I'm negotiating something.
You're always negotiating in life. Always. Even
And
with your
people don't
kids,
get
you're
that.
negotiating with.
100%. But I don't think a lot of agents think that.
Yeah.
You know, I think they just feel like they are who they are and they say what they want to say.
Yeah.
And they don't kind of temper that with, who am I really talking to here?
Totally.
Because I haven't really gotten to know that person. So what do you think transparency will look like, 2 to 3 years from now? We're kind of on a major push right now to be more transparent.
Yeah.
To understand all the new laws and regulations and rules. It's our job to communicate this, as we've been talking about, to our customers and clients. But where do you think we're going to be in 2 to 3 years with this? Better for it? Not better for it?
Oh, I'm all
Chugging
for
along.
transparency. So I would be very happy if we continue to go down this path of making things more transparent. My hope that in 2 to 3 years, we'll be able to see all inventory online for a client with no gatekeeping happening.
Yeah, no private listings.
Of course, in the rare instances where, for private reasons, they want to keep that sale out of the media. That I understand. That's always been around, by the way. It's not a new concept.
And
it's
that's
always
fine.
happened, and that's totally
fine.
okay.
Sure.
But for the most part, for most real estate, should be online because I got a buyer for it, and I need to find it to give it to my buyer.
It's interesting when a buyer comes to me and says, I really would love something off market. And I'm thinking to myself, well, how am I going to find that? Unless I hear that an agent friend of mine has something.
Yeah.
You can't search for off market. Mm-hmm. So I don't get it. And I say to them, why do you want an off market property? And they think that they're going to get a better deal because it's not on the market.
You're not.
You're not going to get a better deal. In fact, you're going to pay what they're asking or even more.
Yeah.
Because they're off market and they're not in a rush.
Because at least when it's on the market, another thing that I hope in 2 to 3 years is something that sticks around is days on market. You're able to see, okay, how long has this been sitting on the market?
Yeah.
That's the market letting you know whether or not this property is fairly priced or not.
I don't understand what the thinking is behind the. I just had this question recently.
Yeah.
I really would like to find something off market, Vince. You think we can do that? And I was very transparent and said, no.
Yeah.
Unless I know through my friend network.
Unless there's something, But if
may
you're
be available.
if you're asking that question, your budget's like below $2 million, like what are you doing?
I'm not quite sure.
What are you doing?
Exactly. But I'm kind of like, okay, so, and then why would a seller, whether it's a private listing or an off market listing, be comfortable knowing that you're not hitting the masses out there?
Yeah.
You're not hitting the global audience.
Yeah.
We all know that real estate in New York is a global audience.
Totally.
LinkedIn, I put all my listings all over the place. You
gotta market it.
You're not marketing it to anybody other than your friend network.
Yeah.
And maybe that's not good enough.
I agree. I mean, I've had instances where I did come across like some private off-market properties because I have broker relations in the community and we do kind of share certain things with each other. As I'm sure you have your broker relations as well.
Sure.
We all talk to each other.
Of course.
And I remember bringing this opportunity to my client and it was actually underpriced. And I turned to my client, I said, if this hit the market, they would have gotten so much more money. We need to snap this up if you are okay with it. And they were like, oh, hell yeah. Like I was ready the minute I walked through the door. So that's the other end of it, right? You're also leaving so much money on the table.
Indeed.
When it's not being publicly marketed at all.
You're not.
So there's that. And then I hope that in the next 2 to 3 years, we don't have to keep doing this very silly thing of our buyers who are dependent on their fee, a buyer broker fee being covered, that we don't have to keep asking this question.
Over and over again.
Over and over again, because yes, there are buyers out there who want that fee to be covered, and I don't want to waste my client's time going to that listing and then finding out after the fact when they're interested that this is the fee. Right? Because I know that there are brokers out there who hate being asked that question, but I'm sorry, this is what I have to do.
This is what we have to do to be professional.
Exactly.
To be transparent.
Yep. Provide the info.
Provide that info to be liked by everyone we need to deal with. You know, it's one thing about wanting to be liked by our customers and our clients. I also want to be liked by my colleagues.
Absolutely.
And my co-broker community.
Yeah.
Because, you know, when we're doing complicated deals or whatever, it makes a difference.
Totally.
It makes a total difference. All right. On that note, we're out of time. Sarah, great to see you. Thank you so much for your information. We're coming right back with my final thoughts right after these messages.
Hi, it's Stephen Bailey from Roadway Moving and Storage. Listening to Vince Rocco, you know the right partner makes all the difference. At Roadway, we deliver an experience your clients will love. For specialized services and white glove care, choose Roadway. Want to learn more? Email me at steven@roadwaymoving.com or visit roadwaymoving.com.
Okay, everybody, we are back with my final thoughts. So, transparency isn't changing New York City real estate. It's exposing it. The agents, the teams, the firms that already operated with clarity, discipline, and strong client alignment will accelerate. Everyone else will feel pressure because what used to be hidden in the process, pricing, or positioning is now visible and questioned. This isn't about giving away leverage. It's about redefining it. Clear communication, clean data, and upfront expectations don't weaken your position. They strengthen credibility, which is what actually moves deals forward in a skeptical market. The takeaway here is simple. Transparency isn't fraud. It's the new baseline. And in a market like New York City, where trust is hard won and quickly lost, the professionals lean into reality, not resist it, and they will be more successful. And that's it for this episode of Talking New York Real Estate. I teach my students every week to take a moment to really look inward and ask themselves, who are you at your core? What is your why? The reason you get up in the morning and the driving force behind the choices you make. What beliefs guide you and where did they come from? Your family, your experiences, your struggles, your triumphs. Understanding these pieces of yourself shapes how you move through the world, and once you know them, the challenge is to show up intentionally and be memorable every single day through not through perfection or performance, but by living with authenticity, purpose, clarity, and the courage to let people see and feel the real you. You can follow me on Facebook, on Threads, Instagram, LinkedIn, or TikTok at Vince Rocco. And Karen Kleiser Clark says, life is change, growth is optional, so choose wisely. And from all of us here at Talking New York Real Estate and the More Network, to all of you all around the world, thanks for spending a part of your day with us. I am truly grateful. Keep thinking the good thoughts, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, everybody.